Well, Devin, I figured we need to do a cold open on this show because you had the concert-going experience of a living in the past person of a lifetime.
Truth.
You saw, like, I can't even keep track. So it was a concert with Joan Jett,
followed by Poison, followed by Motley Crue, followed by Def Leppard. It was a soundtrack to high school, Jeremy. It was amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. It was outdoor event, whatever. There's probably 50,000 people there. Was just amazing. Amazing.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So many questions.
Yeah.
I guess the first question was, what band just prevailed? Because in a lineup like that, you have a moment where you realize, oh, this band is actually really going for it.
Right.
It's not just showing up
Right.
and getting their check.
Well, the unfortunate part about a concert that's outside in early fall that starts at 4:30 is you're gonna have some classic acts. They're gonna be like, it's still performing when people are getting off of work, right?
Right.
So not taking points away for the inability to actually make sunset earlier. Like Joan Jett was amazing.
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd ever seen her live. And she was
cool.
just freaking amazing. I have a soft heart for Poison, Jeremy.
Yes.
That's my weak spot. Like,
That's so funny.
So many people can just catch me cranking up Poison and singing at the top of my lungs on any given day.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that the band that kicked the most ass, it wasn't even close. It was Motley Crue.
What?
Yeah.
Wait.
It
All
was
right,
Motley Crue.
let's rewind.
Yeah.
Not
Please,
to be confused with our show. Be kind, rewind.
Yeah.
You in past episodes have been on the record saying Def Leppard is amazing live, Poison's amazing live.
Yep.
And I do think I would have to go pull up the audio recordings of past episodes, but I think you were kind of like on Motley Crue.
I was.
And now it's the complete
reversal. It's complete reversal. Yeah.
Wow.
So Jeremy, let me just take it, and I'll go back to Motley Crue, but let me tell you this. Def Leppard was supposed to be the headline act.
Mm-hmm.
We walked out.
What?
We left.
What?
We left 3 songs into the set because Motley
Crue
Crue,
into the set.
Yeah. Motley Crue did such an amazing job, and then Def Leppard opens. Jeremy, they open with songs from their latest album.
Yeah,
they didn't go to the war chest filled of hits to keep the adrenaline going.
Yeah, they just
And so I'm just like, okay, babe. I leaned over. I was like, I'm okay to go whenever you are. And she goes, let's go. And so we did. We freaking walked out on Def Leppard.
So Motley Crue took a walk on the wild side.
Listen, so here, let me just let's just set it for you. So we're in Oracle Stadium, Oracle Park, which is where the San Francisco Giants play. The sun has just gone down, so it's that cool twilight vibe to it, right? Poison has just wrapped up their set.
Yeah.
So the stage for the first time gets like covered, so we can't see what's going on stage. We know that they're setting up props and stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Jeremy, the entire effing stadium fills with red smoke.
Wow!
An entire stadium filled with red smoke. I'm just like, and then they've got the stage, and then on either side of the stage there's like these 60-foot multimedia monitors, right?
Yeah.
Including one like what would be directly behind the band.
Yeah.
And on the side monitors, they have like this, pre-recorded, like late breaking news, but it's kind of like cutting through, talking about like apocalyptic thing. And basically it boils down to, and the only way to communicate for the next 2 hours will be through music. And then the curtain drops and the freaking band just starts rocking with live wire. And they took advantage of these of their screens where it wasn't just like filming the screens, but they had like some great multimedia filters and stuff on there. And let me just tell you, Tommy Lee beats the hell out of those drums.
Yeah.
He beats the hell out of those drums.
That's great.
And I'm just like, this is and so to go back to what you said, like this was the band, I'm just like, and that was the band that stole the night.
Wow.
I know when they walked off stage after their encore and Def Leppard opened, they were backstage going, these motherfuckers don't have a chance. People are leaving. And they were right.
Wow.
But can I give you the most unexpected moment of the night?
Yeah, I love unexpected moments.
So Motley Crue's playing, and Tommy Lee, their drummer, he made a video in the mid-90s, I think, that kind of went viral before viral was a thing.
Viral, I would say
with his then wife, Pamela Anderson, I believe.
Yes.
And he came out from the drum kit, right? This is toward the end of the show.
Yes.
Came out from the drum kit, went on stage and at the front of the stage and then starts, talking to the audience, and everyone's just hyped up because it's been a great experience. And then he goes, hey, some of you might know that about a couple weeks ago, I posted some pics of my dick on Instagram. And I'm just like, this is going to get real.
Uh-oh.
Jeremy, there are families there. I don't know which families decide to bring like their 6-year-old kids to a Motley Crue show, but nonetheless.
My God.
And so the stadium, or at least half the stadium, the female part of the stadium, like, yeah, cheers. And the guy's just like, like, I feel so emasculated already just Tommy talking about a schlong. And then he goes, let me see you whip out that hog. And the camera's like panning the audience.
Oh no, like in a football game where it's like a kiss cam.
Yeah. and he goes, when's the next time you're ever going to get to see that hog on a 60-foot screen? I'm just like, no.
Oh my gosh.
And then
nightmare fuel.
Yes. And then so some dude who's shirtless and probably a little younger than us, but not a whole lot, is pointing to himself. And so the camera goes to him.
Oh no.
It zooms in and the dude whips out his hog. And I was like, oh. And then I had to lean over to apologize to my wife.
Yeah.
And for those of you thinking, he's apologizing because his wife is pure. No, I apologize because now she knows what a real penis looks like.
So were there people leaving after that? Most
people were cheering it on. Most people were cheering it on. But here's the funniest part though, right? And this would probably only happen in San Francisco.
Yeah.
The next thing is like, ladies, show me your tits.
Nothing.
And nobody did it.
Good job, women.
Right.
Oh, Lord, living in the past. Right? I can't believe Crew was it,
They were amazing. Like, of those 4 bands, the one that I wouldn't go see again would be Def Leppard.
Oh,
it's hard for me to say that. It's hard for me to say that. But I would pay to go see Motley Crue again.
Wow.
Yeah, true story.
The apocalypse has happened.
The apocalypse has happened.
Oh, my gosh. All right, let's get this show on the road. All right, welcome to Living in the Past, where 2 middle-aged dudes relive their past by enjoying the pop culture of their youth. Devin, are you ready to drive a V8 Interceptor, be chased by a post-apocalyptic gang, wreck your car, befriend a feral kid, and save the last sane community in the wasteland?
Jeremy, I've seen a middle-aged man's penis on a 60-foot screen. I'm ready for anything.
Oh, that's right. We're doing Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. Hey, there are many movies that have left impressions on me from my past, the nostalgia factor. But man, there's not many that left more so an impression on me when I saw it than The Road Warrior.
Yeah.
It's called Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, but when it was released, we knew it as The Road Warrior because Mad Max hadn't really made the rounds. No one knew what it was in the States, at least. Yep. And so we're going to be calling this The Road Warrior.
Thank you.
It came out in May of '82, man. What a freaking summer.
Yeah.
Like
what a year, but yeah.
You got E.T., The Thing,
yeah.
Conan the Barbarian, Road Warrior. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Crazy. It is truly one of the best summers, years of especially like pop culture filmmaking. It's just
that has had its identity like remain intact. Like there's so many forgettable summers and years of movies, and this one is just like the planets were aligned. Mercury was in retrograde. I don't know what was going on, but it was happening in '82.
And what's weird is like normally what you see today is like filmmakers, these big conglomerates that like basically control everything.
Right.
They see something and they go, oh, everyone likes that. I'm going to make a volcano movie too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they just copy each other. This was a situation where like you have Spielberg and Tobe Hooper making Poltergeist, but Spielberg editing like E.T. while he's making Poltergeist. Right. It's not like they're all sharing stuff because then you have Milius making Conan, and then you have like no one is talking to each other,
right?
And then you even have like the Beastmaster being
right,
made, which is like
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Times is being made. Like, these guys are not like, oh, this is cool, I need to make something like this. They're all making their own thing. It's wholly original.
Yeah.
Damn, what a summer, what a year.
Yeah.
I loved it. And that's what we've been doing on Living the Past, is looking at the films of 82 and 92. And 92 is pretty good too. But when you look at the 80s in that specific year, man, it's unassailable, I think.
It really is. I think, like I said, that this is one of those rare cases in Hollywood that those movies have found legs with generations that weren't even part of the picture when they came out. I mean, I know your son Sam is really into movies of all genres and all ages and stuff. But even kids that aren't like that, like my kid, who is not a cinephile by any stretch of the imagination, like, she knows E.T.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And other kids at least know who Spicoli is, even if they haven't seen, they get the references, right?
Totally.
And so I think that is just like this weird anomaly of a year where it has transcended well beyond its expected, like best before date.
Yeah. And what's really weird is, like, this is 40 years ago, and if a kid doesn't know those films of 82, there's a high probability they like a film that was directly influenced by those films.
Right, absolutely true.
It's just kind of looms large. Well, before we get into just all of this amazing movie of The Road Warrior, got some business. First, we want to thank our patrons, Tessa, Abby, Trevor, Travis, and Dave. You guys are keeping the lights on. We could not do the show without your support. And if you're interested in doing our patron supporting our show, it's really easy. It's really cheap. It's like buying us a crappy cup of coffee once a month.
And not even like good coffee, like gas station coffee.
Gas station coffee.
Yeah,
you can find us at patreon.com/living in the past, LIVININ the past. Bonus episodes, lots of content. We got some video work coming up, so check it out. We got some really great stuff for you if you want to support the show. We also have started a new show that actually the numbers are great. It's Be Kind, Rewind. It's sort of the show that follows our main show every other week. We've had people calling in. You can leave a voice message, ask us questions, comment on what we said. All you have to do is call 831-337-8020 and leave us a message, and we'll play it on the show. Patrons get first dibs. We do normally about 4 calls a show, 3 to 4. And if you're a patron, you're pushed to the front of the line.
I mean, that is the equivalent of the Genie Pass at Disneyland, the Flash Pass at Universal. It's just moving to the front of the line is grand. We learned this thing. No, never mind. I'm not going to say it on there because I won't say it on there. But nonetheless, and go back to a couple episodes ago too, Jeremy, because we had a listener call in and ask, so like, I'm on the fence about becoming a patron. Push me to the let me do it side. And I think, Jeremy, I gave some pretty compelling arguments to do that.
Hey, you gave, and if you're listening, you're like, what were the arguments? Well, go back and listen because Devin convinced me. If I wasn't doing the show, I'd be a patron.
Yeah, you would whip out that hog.
More like a pig, little piggy.
And that little piggy did not go to the market. wee all the way home.
Oh my gosh! So, couple shout outs on the for our show as we get started. The first is when this whole podcast thing started. I had a student when I was teaching in St. Louis come to me. I think he was a junior at the time.
Yeah.
He might have been a sophomore. I can't quite remember, but I think he was in his junior year. I taught him years prior.
Yeah.
And he came and said, Mr. Scott, I would love to do a movie club. I'm really into movies. Is there any way we can do something like that? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this guy, his name is Johnny Kinney. Johnny, just wanted to give you a shout out because he got this movie club started. And in that movie club was when I took my first steps into the podcasting world. We did a
first step into a larger world.
Much larger. And we did a podcast called Real Talk, REEL Talk.
You clever play on words.
I'm trying. And it was like, this was at a time where it was actually kind of hard to do a podcast.
Yeah.
and to like figure out everything and like the microphones, the soundboard, all that stuff. So we had to get like the AV people to help us.
Yeah.
Now it's so simple.
It is. It is. Even we could do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But Johnny, if he did not come say, hey, can we do a movie club? I don't know if we would be sitting here doing this.
So what I'm hearing is, let's do it for Johnny.
We're doing it for Johnny.
Johnny, if you're listening right now, by the way, I just wanted to put this out there that I'm actually looking for a more professional co-host to work with. So you can get a hold of me on the phone number that Jeremy gave out earlier. And I will get that. I'll be in contact with you. I'll DM you. We'll set something.
831-337-8020. And we were going to have a special guest today, Josh, but he had to be out of town. Josh, this episode is for you as well.
Wow. No one puts Josh in the corner.
No one ever puts him in the corner. He's a huge fan of the Road Warrior. He's crushed that he can't be on the show. So we'll try to pick up the slack, make Josh proud.
Aww.
Johnny too.
Yeah.
So we're doing this for Josh and Johnny, two J's. Devin, when did you first see the Road Warrior? When did that come onto the radar?
It was on VHS. It was at my home. Watched it with my friend Drew, who's also a listener of the show. And man, it blew my mind. I think that was the first time I ever was brought into this post-apocalyptic world. I don't have any other memory of that kind of backdrop for a book, TV show, or movie before seeing the Road Warrior.
Yeah, it's sort of an original in that sense, right? My first interaction with it came on HBO. Yeah. So this was probably 83.
Okay.
I saw it for the first time, and I totally snuck it. We had a TV out on I lived in Hawaii. We had like a lanai, a back porch kind of area that was screened in, and a little 13-inch TV was out there.
Nice.
And little Jeremy pulled the TV right up to it, had his fingers on the little like cable box.
Ready to.
Because if mom and dad came in, I was clicking that bastard.
Switch.
And I was transfixed. It's the first movie experience where I was like extraordinarily nervous.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I know Luke did the Death Star trench run. I was more wowed by that.
Yeah.
So, Star Wars, I had those exciting moments, but I was truly nervous.
Wow.
I just distinctly remember how are they getting out of this?
Yeah.
I was scared.
Wow.
Like, the villains scared me in the Road Warrior, and I was just like, how can they get out of it? And then of course, the end where Wes, the Mohawk wearing villain, is on the front of the truck and pops up, that jump scare at the end. I about lost my mind. Freaked out.
That is so great. That is so great. That's interesting that's like one of the first times, or maybe the first time that you felt yourself being nervous in a movie situation. I think mine would probably have to be Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, yeah.
I think when...
No, that's fair. Yeah,
either Luke in the cave or Luke versus Vader on Bespin. I think both those moments left me just like, what? And then, of course, the line from Vader, right? I think that those left me just so...
No, that's a good call. I don't remember that, though. And I remember the Road Warrior so much more. Yeah, I remember where I was. I remember how I felt. I remember, like, clicking off when mom walked through the lanai, clicking back. Sorry, mom and dad. There were a lot of movies snuck out on that lanai. I actually saw my first rated R film out there, which was Friday the 13th Part 2.
Really?
First rated R movie.
Wow.
Yeah. And then followed by The Road Warrior. What the hell, man? I was like second, third grade. I'm watching this shit.
Dude. So great. I think my first rated R movie was Bachelor Party.
Oh my God. Oh my God!
It was either Bachelor Party or what's the one?
Wow.
No, it was Night Shift.
Oh my gosh!
With Henry Winkler. Yeah.
Oh, glorious.
Saw that with Drew too. That was another Drew thing because his parents didn't seem to have much care. At his birthday party we watched Night Shift with Sharky's Machine, Jeremy. Sharky's Machine.
Holy cow. I remember my parents went out on a date and saw Sharky's Machine.
Yeah.
And they came home and I was aware of Bert, you know, and I was like, well, how was it, you know? And they were like, you're not going to be seeing this movie. I'm like, wait, what? And eventually I saw it, but yeah, wow, Sharky's Machine. That's amazing. You know, the Road Warrior is, gosh, I mean, it's great on so many levels. I mean, the setting, we just talked about it. Like, we hadn't really seen anything like this.
Right.
The action, it's a simple story, but you're totally engrossed by it.
Yeah.
I even think Mel Gibson has like 16 or 19 lines of dialogue.
Crazy.
Right? It's just insane.
Yeah.
So, like, just a quiet figure out in the wasteland.
Yeah.
It just all captures the imagination. Is the setting, because you mentioned that at the beginning, is that the thing that really draws you in? Like, what makes this special?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly like the backdrop as far as geography, but I also think it's like, you know, I don't know about you, but like one of the things that I have fond memories of are the Lego or other creations that I made that had nothing to do with directions. And so for me, the Road Warrior with the vehicles they had and so many other things just felt like it was somebody that just put them together with whatever scraps they had. And I was used to doing that on a much more, you know, silly level with my Legos and stuff. And so I'm just like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
This is what was playing on inside my head before I knew that this was a thing beyond the bin of Legos.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, I played, you know, Hot Wheels, Matchbox cars, and like I would reenact similar kinds of things before I saw it.
Right.
And then when I saw it, it was like pouring gas on the fire of a kid's imagination. Yeah. There was a board game that came out. I did not have it. My neighbor did, and it was called Thunder Road.
Okay.
And it had little kind of like the little Matchbox cars, little Hot Wheels cars, and you basically played the Road Warrior.
Really?
And there's a board game company called Restoration Games.
Okay.
They find these old games. Yeah. They get the rights to them, redo them.
Wow.
They've just redone Thunder Road and released it, and people are waiting. Like it was on like a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And so I backed it. I was like, well, it's like $50. I'll throw in $50 and get this game and get all the little cars and play You basically play the Road Warrior board game.
That's kind of cool.
But yeah, I mean, everything about it was cool.
Yeah.
And the story, here's the thing that really gets me, is that it's this absolutely crazy world that obviously, well, depends on where. In California, there's some places that are like the Road Warrior, but you know, it is so foreign in so many ways. I mean, we're not dealing with a post-apocalypse yet.
Right.
Come on, Vlad. Don't do anything. But like, you know, yet the hero's journey is present. And
it is in a really weird way, though.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
But it feels accessible.
Yeah.
Like I was doing there's an amazing, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I really like the Road Warrior, I want to read more about it. Find the website Cinephilia and Beyond. It's basically an academic film periodical. And the research on that alone was pretty much all I needed for this episode. I didn't need to go anywhere else. I went there, but they had a moment in one of the articles that they have on archive there, where they're talking about the hero's journey. And this is a quote from this article. It says, "But even though the world Miller built is quite distinguishable and eclectic, the story that permeates the movie's core is an archetypical one." And it goes on and says, scholars consider the movie to be a Western at heart, a group of settlers forced to fend for themselves against a gang of marauders while a hardened hero decides to interfere, thereby saving the day and reclaiming his humanity. But it goes on, and this is what makes, I think, it so universal. It goes, but Max is not restricted to being just a typical Western leading man, but rather something much more universal. George Miller, the filmmaker, said the following. He said, Max is all of us, amplified. Each of us in our own way is looking for meaning in a chaotic world. He's got that one instinct to survive. After the first Mad Max, we went to Japan and they said, we know this character. He's a Ronin, like a samurai. In Scandinavia, they called him a lone wandering Viking. To others, he's a classic American Western figure. What Miller discovered after he had made the first movie was that with the character of Max, he had unintentionally tapped into a universal archetype that would be instantly recognizable in all cultures around the globe, that of the hero.
That's awesome.
And that I really was I was rewatching it last night, and it was just a light bulb moment. I'm like, he is so accessible.
Yeah.
And like he does things where we wish we could do.
Right.
But his struggle of trying to find meaning, like that resonates.
Yeah.
Like he's so broken.
Yeah.
All of us experience broken moments in our lives,
right.
like where things don't go the way we want them to.
Right.
Of course, for Max, he has this horrible loss of life, this tragedy where he loses his wife and child. But we all have experienced loss, and we all are trying to heal, and we're all trying to pick up the pieces.
Yep.
And Max is doing it in this totally fucked up situation.
Yes.
And he's just trying to make it. And something about that just grabs you as an audience member.
Well, I think that's, we have so many shots in that. And then, of course, we look at like the one that comes out years later with Fury Road. And I think that, a couple of the times that we see this on screen, I think this is one of the more relatable vibes. And that is you are being overwhelmed by the circumstances and you're just looking for a damn break from your circumstances. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even so much about survival as it is just like a little bit of like, can you just give me an effing break for a minute? Right. No, and it's just nonstop. And so going back to what you said, I think that is a universal thing. I think we all feel that at various points in our life, whether it's through work or as a parent or as a student or whatever else. It's like, can the circumstances just pause for a second?
Right. And it's weird because this film is so batshit crazy.
It really is.
And yet, I think when we look in the world around us, obviously Ukraine comes to mind and what's going on there.
Yeah.
It's like, where is the humanity?
Right.
And we see it even in the United States. We see things happen and we just go, where's the humanity? Like, why are we treating each other this way?
Right.
And Max has those moments too. And so same with the gyro captain. Like there's a horrible assault and rape early in the film. And it's like they're both just sickened by what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And they react appropriately.
Right.
And yet they have to exist in this world where this evil takes place. And how do you navigate it? And I think as far-fetched in some ways as the Road Warrior is, it's tapping into something that we all are experiencing in a way, especially now that we have like mass media the way we have it with the internet. We see all the horrible things now.
Right.
And it's one of those things where like Max becomes this like vehicle for us to kind of process our own shit. And
totally.
It's really interesting in that way. So
well, and I think, go back to like your Psychology 101 class for those of you that went to college or university and had that inevitable general education experience. But one of the things that I distinctly remember my professor talking about in that class was, one of several reasons that we go to the movies is not just for escapism, but it's for coping strategies.
Right.
And I think that, one of the things that we see with this character of Mad Max, and in so many ways the anti-hero.
Right.
And I think that we see him survive because he not only understands his situation and circumstances, but he adapts to it.
Totally.
And I think that's one of the great things about this character, that if we're looking for coping strategies, whether, hopefully not in a post-apocalyptic world, but just in our day-to-day operation, it's learning to not just be aware of the situation, but how to adapt to them. Totally. Right. Whether you like them, don't like them, whatever, but you have to adapt in order to survive. And I think that is something that rings true for all of us.
Yeah, it's funny because you look at the Road Warrior in one sense, and this is really all the Mad Max movies, including the most recent one that came out in 2015. You look at these movies and they're just so crazy.
Yeah.
Yet there's something in them that draws people to it. And I think it's just this way of working through stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the horror genre does that as well. I think there's some people that horror films, and I used to not accept this as a basis for like why people like horror. I used to dismiss it.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I maybe a little bit wiser, I don't know. But like I see people look at horror as a way like, my life has been horrific. I can go into this horror film and watch some people get it. But someone might escape.
Right.
And when they do, I could kind of like latch onto them and escape with them.
Right.
And it's really weird and unique psychologically what goes on in horror films. And there's some stuff in The Road Warrior that like has a foot kind of just on the line of horror. Sure. I mean, there's some horrific things that happen in the film. Yeah. And to see Max overcome it is pretty awesome. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to walk through the movie. All right, so Devin, Mad Max, it opens, or The Road Warrior opens, and it immediately establishes like tone because you have this, it's in like almost old school television 4:3 ratio.
Yeah.
And it shows like old footage of World War II, atomic bombs,
right?
Even some as the little footage intro to the movie where there's a narrator kind of talking about what happened.
Right.
It never tells you exactly what happened. It just says these two powers went at it.
Right.
And this is the result of it.
Yeah.
And gasoline, oil is really important. It's how you make it survive.
Right.
And he at the end of this little intro, he starts cutting in footage from Mad Max, even though the audience in the United States might not have been familiar with it.
Right.
And so, because this is May 82 when it comes out, not a lot of people had access to Mad Max in the United States. So it was like, oh, there's footage? Like, how do they do that?
Right,
like, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
They didn't realize there's this other movie. But it really, this voiceover is really interesting. It sets up the Mad Max world, and then you immediately cut to Max being chased.
Right.
And like, it's an exciting open.
Yeah.
Like, because he's chased. He causes the guys chasing him to, and we're introduced to Wes, the Mohawk wearing, like, kind of second in command.
Right.
And we're introduced to these characters. It's kinetic. You were introduced to the dog. There's a wreck, and Max is trying to get this gasoline, and it's like, you're 5.5 minutes in, like, at this point, and you're like,
confused
what?
As can be. Yeah.
I watched the commentary, and apparently there was filmed a sequence right before that. Like, the narration didn't exist in the Australian version. And instead it was Max was driving along, and the gang was on a farm hanging people from a tree. They killed them. They were hanging them.
Wow.
And they see Max, and then they chase him. That's how it started originally. And then they added this narration intro and then just cut to that.
Yeah.
I don't know I haven't seen the other one, so I don't know which I would like more, but I love what I know. And I think I feel like I'm just thrown into the deep end of the pool. Like, how did you like?
I mean, yes. And at the same time, it's an interesting quandary, right? Because I think that sometimes as creators, we can want to give context like the opening narration does for this. And at the same time, one of the things, like, even though in my opinion it's gone downhill over the years, one of the things that I do love about The Walking Dead is we don't know how it started. Yeah. Like, what was the start, right? Yeah. And it wasn't until maybe like 2 years ago where the original writer said just like space spore, right?
Yeah.
But until then, we have no idea. And so I appreciate the narrator and the context and kind of this reel, if you will. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to like just be thrown into that even more so and be kind of caught off balance. But yes, but I do love how we're kind of thrown in it. To kind of paraphrase what Lawrence Kasdan said about the original Star Wars is, it moves like a son of a bitch, right? Like, you're thrown into it and it moves like a son of a bitch. And I think that the same is very much true here.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because last night I was watching it and I'm like, he is cutting so fast for a filmmaker in 1982.
Yeah.
And so I just sat there as the last, like, kind of would be the last reel of the film. It's the big chase at the end. So I didn't do this for the whole film, but I did it for the last 15 to 20 minutes. And I did it consistently. I just counted how many seconds between a cut. It seemed like it was averaging 2.5 seconds between a cut.
That's so insane. Crazy. That's insane. And I would just, I don't even remember how I know this, but I remember when the TV series ER was a big thing, right? And of course they had like the drum beat music when everything's going. Right. But Michael Crichton, one of the producers on that and creators of that, talked about we're not going to have any scene longer or any cut longer than 6 seconds. And that was a big deal in the early to mid 90s. And so you're talking taking it back another 12 years or more.
That's crazy.
And 2 to 3 seconds? I mean, now listen, I've done some of my best work in that amount of time, Jeremy. But for a film, that's incredible.
It's really shocking. And especially when you kind of like take Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. Long takes.
Yes. This is unlike anything being made at that time. Right. And it's fascinating. When I noticed that, I was like, let me look up some stuff. And so I looked up Fury Road that came out in 2015.
Yeah.
And sure enough, 2.5 seconds. It was almost like a rule they had.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that did statistics on it, and I think it came out to 2.4 seconds a shot.
Wow.
And there's a lot more, I think, just because it's a much more modern film, the 2015 Fury Road, but there's a lot of just research done and interviews and stuff just taken I paid attention to the Road Warrior with this, but they were talking about Fury Road, and they said, how can an audience pay attention to what all's going on in this widescreen formatted film? It's 2 seconds and it's gone.
Yeah.
And Miller said, well, let's make sure everything's in the middle of the frame. So you don't have to go far. And you could look at Fury Road and it's totally that. But I went and watched The Road Warrior. Some of that stuff's going on. It's amazing.
Yeah.
They have these quick cuts, but you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
There's some techniques that they used. Like one was crazy. They put the camera and purposefully made it kind of like bob up and down.
Yeah.
Like it's in the car, in the vehicle.
Right.
It's on like a gimbal, but it's purposefully bouncing.
Yeah.
And they created that because they felt it added to this kinetic energy of the film.
The experience, yeah.
And man, they're just doing one thing after another, after another, after another. And the Road Warrior, that's like, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they did.
Well,
and it just stands the test of time.
Well, and I think that yes, here, and at the same time, I think just a heap on top of that is really trying to understand. Like, can you imagine what it would like to be the freaking film editor on that?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
That would take forever to piece together a 2-ish hour movie with 2.5 second shots.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Miller, the filmmaker, he had a horrible experience making Mad Max. He had a year. So he filmed it. So imagine it took 3 months to film it, roughly. Then he had 9 months to edit. And he said it was just a nightmare. It was a nightmare. He even questioned, like, am I even a filmmaker? But he learned all these lessons on what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
And then he applied them. He said The Road Warrior was a much harder film to make. But he had all these lessons and that he had learned, and he just started applying everything.
Yeah.
And even to the editing stage. So they had this, like, to them, Miller and all the people who's collaborating, they felt like they failed with Mad Max.
Yeah.
But with the Road Warrior, as hard as that was, all that stuff we've been talking about, they felt like they were equipped to do it.
That makes sense.
And it's really interesting, just like learning from mistakes. And thank God Miller made the Road Warrior. It's incredible. So Max is a former cop. He obviously, it comes sort of as alluded to in the film, he's lost his family. Of course, if we've seen Mad Max, we know that's what happened. He drives this supercharged, black V8 Pursuit Special around the wilderness of Australia.
Right.
He has a dog.
Yes.
I mean, think of just like Fallout. Like Fallout 3, I guess, is the game, the video game where you find the dog right at the beginning and you're in the wasteland, you and your dog, and it's just taps into something that, of course, is in the Road Warrior. It's amazing how you see the influence the Road Warrior has. Like, there's another video game that's wildly popular called Borderlands, and all the villains are just modeled after the Road Warrior.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, like the influence. The villains are truly a standout to me. And this is the 35th anniversary was 5 years ago, and IGN had a special article on it, and this is what they said about the villains. And I found this we should probably mention this on the show. The quote is, even the villains of the film leave a lasting impression. Wells, the actor, whose mohawked, shoulder-padded wearing Wes was so unique and visually memorable, he has instantly became a go-to inspiration for other end of the world baddies. I mean, he shows up in Weird Science.
Yeah.
Like same character. Like he plays the character in Weird Science. And it goes on, the article goes on and says, recalled at a Q&A that he and Miller worked hard to create a backstory for the maniac that, though never was seen in the film, strongly informed the character. Wells saw Wes, the guy who's playing, as a survivor, a Vietnam War vet who wanted to lead and not be led. Hence his constant conflict with Humongous. But a key aspect of locking in on Wes came when Miller asked Wells what he would do if the world ended tomorrow, and say there was a supermarket loaded with everything he needed at the corner of his street, but other people showed up. And this is how Wells, he said, being arrogant, I said I'd shoot the bastards, recalled Wells. And Miller said, congratulations, Wes. This was like in the casting.
Wow.
And so they're amazing villains. They're some of the best. Is it just the look? Is that why they're the best? Like Humongous and Wes and just everything.
Obviously that plays into it, right? I think that's one of the indelible parts of this film is not just the backdrop, but the costuming of the characters. And I think that, it's interesting because you talk about that casting choice there. And I think that's one of the other things that our minds as humans tend to go to. Like if we're living in this post-apocalyptic world and we realize that it's truly humanity against the elements, and we still have people that are willing to just completely have power and control at the expense of other people's lives. I think that's one of the things that probably jars me the most with this movie.
Yeah.
Because we can look, like if we look at a World War II film or a Vietnam War film or whatever else, we can go like, okay, like we're fighting for whatever we're fighting for.
Right.
Your job as a soldier or as a Marine or whatever is to do what you're told to do.
Yeah.
But when it's just like humanity has been largely wiped out and resources become even more scarce, the fact that we still can't get together is really scary. Like to me, that's more scary than the circumstances of like being in a post-nuclear world.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Yeah. It's interesting. It's like these villains, they have a look that's sort of otherworldly and scary, but unique and interesting. We've talked about this so much on just all the podcasting we've done is the power of mystery.
Right.
But there's kind of the mystery that like J.J. Abrams did in Star Wars where he didn't even know the answers to his mysteries.
Right.
But like with The Road Warrior, like I think they knew the answers to the mysteries they set up.
Definitely. And
it's really interesting.
And I would just add to that when we're talking about the looks of the characters. And I think, you talked before how the character of Mad Max was so relatable from the Japanese perspective and the Norwegian perspective. And I think this dressing up of the characters still resonates with people because we can look at even like Native American culture and war paint and war, I don't want to say uniforms, but war dress with African tribes, right? The same thing happens. So I think that there's an element of that even though we've got a dude with like, Lyle Alzado's shoulder pads on, at the same time, we're just like, oh, I understand from a perspective of like me going into battle and or wanting to intimidate. That's been something that's been going around this is part of like our conscious of just other humans throughout history, right?
Yeah, and it's cool because we're talking about shoulder pads.
Yeah,
they're taking things that would have existed and they're repurposing them.
Right.
I can't remember. It was in the research. I don't have it on our show notes, but like I came across Miller talking about we want things to be used that would have existed in the world.
Right.
And he said, just because it's this post-apocalypse, that doesn't take people's creativity away.
Right.
So it's like they're creative in how they're like using the things they're finding, whether it's shoulder pads and like how they're dressing up. There's still creativity. There's still an ability to craft a weapon.
Right.
Like there's crazy weapons. Like there's a thing that Humongous throws at the end of the film. And it's like this crazy looking spear that they fashioned. And it's like, my God, like, and so there's this weird lived in real, even though it's this bizarre sci-fi post-apocalyptic thing in a magazine from the 80s called Fantastic Films. It's this issue number 30. I came across an interview and the magazine asks the following to Miller. He says, your main villain is named Humongous, who constantly wears a mask and sports a bodybuilder's physique. Why did you keep his face covered? Is one of the villains left over from? Is this one of the villains left over from Mad Max 1? And Miller said the following. It's kind of what we've been talking about. He goes, we have a background story on all of the characters in the Road Warrior. Humongous's background story is that he was some kind of senior military officer and something terrible happened to his head, an explosion or something. He was a fairly mature individual, a kind of strategist, not just a crazed hothead like his partner with the Mohawk. Actually, he started out from 3 characters. Normally, when you're writing a screenplay, you try and condense a number of characters into one for the sake of plot simplification. In this case, we did just the opposite. We split the arch villain into 3 characters. We had Humongous as the body. We had the guy with the Davy Crockett hat who loses his fingers from from the mongrel kid as the mouthpiece, and the guy with the mohawk as the crazed maniac. It's brilliant. These villains are so memorable, and it kind of leads me to just thinking of the characters in general. Yeah. I watched this with Sam. I edited out I didn't let him watch the rape scene. I was like, come on, he's 10. Generally I was okay with the content for him. And we watched it. It ended. He was like, that was awesome. Thanks, Dad. That was really a cool movie. And he went off to think about it and play video games, right? And I sat there though after it was over, and I kind of rewound. I just reversed the film. And then I watched it with a commentary. But as I was watching the commentary, it just dawned on me, these characters in the Road Warrior are so memorable. You have the feral kid. He howls like a dog. He has that moment where he howls like a dog so Max can get through. Right. When he tries to take the gas to go find the rig. Right. You have the mechanic who's paralyzed, he's a paraplegic, and he's on this kind of weird bungee thing, you're a baby that you put a baby in to bounce around. He's in that. You have the gyro captain, the gyro pilot. You just have character after character. You have the girl who's wielding the bow and arrow with the white shoulder pads. She's beautiful, and yet there's this mystery, but she's really tough. She cuts a dude's throat, and who's that? There's even minor characters. There's one in particular, a really bad dude that he reaches out. He rapes someone early in the film. Max knocks him out. He shows up again at the end. He's a complete moron. He puts his hand out and gets his hand caught in the wheels of the rig and just gets ripped under it. It's who the fuck is that guy? And it's just he has kind of a weird hat. And it's just, Devin, I don't know of a film where every single character is memorable like this. Yeah.
I cannot think of one other. And I think, we could look at movies that we've even taken a look at. There's certainly, we can look at the original Predator, which I think has a lot of width and I think enough depth in the cast of characters where we at least have an interest in them. Right. Yeah. But I do think though, this is such a collection of psychological misfits on so many levels. Yeah. And really, you're talking earlier about how they actually split the baddie into 3 separate characters. One, that's a bold move, because if it's not pulled off right, the whole movie's going to suffer for it. Yeah. But then to just, from a psychological standpoint, Jeremy, do we see other films of this age have this wide cast of just, when I use the term crazy, I mean it just from a very far out creative sense of when you're not even just developing the backstories of these characters, right? But you're developing what they're going to look like on screen, what their motivations are, and all these things. I can't think of any other films right now as we're sitting here that do as well of a job as this movie does at painting that picture for the audience.
It's kind of amazing. Yeah. And there's just weird stuff. I noticed this. I had noticed it before, but because I was doing the show, I was really trying to pay attention. There's a moment where Humongous opens up his gun case for his pistol. Yeah. He has that scope on the case, and he had a few bullets in there. But it's a picture of his grandparents? Yeah. He has a picture of his family in there. Yeah. It's what the fuck? Yeah. This guy's a murderous, crazy person, but he keeps a picture of his grandparents around.
And his locket around his neck.
And it's weird. Yeah. You have these little things it's never commented on. Bad movies would talk about it. Like, they would say, hey, he keeps this picture of
right.
But it's just there and you can see it if you see it.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And it's just, there's this weird, there's just details all in this world.
And I think that's it, right? There's a difference between having details that are going to like matter to the plot.
Yeah.
And there's details for the sake of just like, we're just going to throw this in there.
Right.
And this is just going to cause conversation. And quite frankly, dare I say this, Jeremy, while we're recording a podcast, that was some of the glories of talking about movies back in the day.
Right.
Because there wasn't like this necessarily like, like sometimes like Starlog or Empire Magazine would kind of like, here's the backstory. But how many... not water cooler, but playground conversations happen where you're just like, what about this? And you were just left to speculation. And I think that is such an important part of fandom for any franchise, just the speculation of what if.
Yeah, as much as I totally agree with you. And as much as I love the internet, and like I found this site that living the past for 2 years, I found the website that I'm working on because I had a student in my film class doing some research on a movie called Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And he found this website because he was wanting to find more data on Pan's Labyrinth. And he was like, Mr. Scott, have you ever heard of this? I had never heard of it. And, found all this information. So I love the internet for this access to information.
Yep.
But just like you said, there's something amazing about having a film come out, like when we were living back in the past, where you just kind of sat with it for a while.
Right.
Like I have a memory of Raiders of the Lost Ark coming out, and I hadn't seen it yet. And a friend at my elementary school, Matt West, Matt decides to tell us the whole story. And there's like 10 of us gathered around on the edge of our seats. We're like, it's like recess. And he's like telling us, here's what happened, then this happened, then this happened. We're like, this is amazing,
Right.
I can't wait to go see it, and just, it's what you played on the playground.
Right.
It's what you talked about.
Yeah.
It wasn't like when I watched Sam yesterday, he finished the movie. He was like, that was great. And then he had another media to go to. And I remember when I watched something like that, I would like got my Matchbox cars out, or I went outside. I went outside and reenacted something, or I drew. I was drawing all the time. I would draw the cars.
Yeah.
I did that with Star Wars. I did that with Indiana Jones. You stayed with a work of pop culture a lot longer than you do now. It's like, oh, that song's done. Burp. And then I'm going to stream this other song on a different album by a different artist. I'm not even going to listen to the album anymore.
Yes.
Like and it's just, I fear and I'm saddened that I think we've lost something that we had that was special.
Yeah.
And we were able to sit with things a little bit longer and just kind of like let it stew. And I think that helped us realize how special it was.
I think that the truth is there. I mean, you mentioned Indiana Jones, and certainly Star Wars was the same way. But I mean, there was the inevitable, 3-year waiting period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you didn't have the internet, and quite frankly, very few people had VCRs, especially during the early stages of those properties, you had to speculate and make shit up. But here's like, I don't want to like sound like old man yells at cloud.
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think that's one of the things that quite frankly is wrong with fandoms right now, is because there's so much content and so much information.
Yeah.
And some people, whether they would identify as gatekeepers, or whether they just have way too much knowledge about a subject, that here's what there wasn't before. There wasn't a hierarchy of fandom.
Right.
And now there is a hierarchy of fandom for so many of the major properties out there. Yeah. And it quite frankly, it burned us out of our previous podcast.
Totally burned us out.
And it's really kind of burned me out just as like an individual fan of the basis for that podcast that we did for over 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to sound like the old man yells at cloud right now, but it's like there was something beautiful about just being able to speculate and talk and like your theory may have sucked, but we would still have like I didn't think about that. So there was still like a little bit of excitement about it, right?
Yeah, you would create stories around it and like speculate.
Yeah.
You had time because like between the Road Warrior and Thunderdome, there were years that passed. And it was like, what happened to Max?
Yeah.
Like, what's he
totally
doing? And I remember going to see in Thunderdome in the theater, and I just could not wait because I wanted to know what was the next story of Max's life.
Totally.
And those are, listen, there's so much in the past that's just not good. Like, it's like not great, right? And we love the things that we have today that are good and helpful and healthy. But there are things that are worth looking back and just saying, that wasn't that bad. And it's one of the, for me, it's like, as I'm teaching film now, I'm constantly thinking about like analog film and like, so I bought a 16 millimeter camera. I have several Super 8 cameras, and I'm like messing around with the analog world of just like shooting on film and like showing them to my students who, when I showed them my Super 8 cameras, they were just like, this is incredible.
Wow.
Like we passed them around the class, and they were looking at them like, wait, the film goes in here. And like, and we were just talking about when you shoot on film versus digital. And we were talking about this because we're starting the preparation to write our scripts and do some film work in the spring semester. And we were just talking through, like, when you shoot on film, everything is more valuable.
Yes.
Like, your film costs money.
Right.
Like, you can't just delete, make space, reshoot. Like,
right.
Like, you got this film reel, you're shooting on it.
Yeah.
You rehearse.
Right.
You make sure everything is in its right place, and everyone's on their A game. And I've talked to some filmmakers that have said when you shoot on film, the set is much more locked down. And not that they're not professionals, but when you shoot on digital, there is this in the back of your mind, well, we could just reset it and redo it.
Right.
And so it's just interesting, just artistically speaking, that analog experience, I think, might have had some more heft behind it.
I think that's definitely true. One of my closest friends in college was a photography major, and, big fan of, well, you would know the name, like Matthew Brady, who was the photographer of during the Civil War. And then, of course, Ansel Adams. And just thinking about like how long Ansel Adams would freaking camp in Yosemite to get one shot. One shot, right?
So crazy.
And the ability to not just be there and just like hold your button down and riddle off however many things. And I was laughing at, actually, in class this week, somebody had asked me about, I forget, like, I had a photo of my dog, and I thought, like, oh, it's sad that I have more photos of my dog on the camera roll in my phone than I have of my entire childhood.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, we don't think about it. Snap. We're taking pictures of our food, Jeremy.
Yeah, we are. We're taking pictures of our food.
Can you imagine, like, in the 1980s, if someone would have stopped? Let me take a picture of my food with my 35 millimeter camera.
So ridiculous. So ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, like, there's years, like when I was 19, 20.
Yeah.
I might have a handful of pictures. I was busy doing stuff, man. I was getting into trouble.
Pictures of that anyway.
Thank God. Some of these kids today, man, they got it all documented. I don't have anything.
One of the things that we talked about off air, and forgive me if I'm jumping the gun a little bit. No. I think this is like a huge part of this film and of the Mad Max franchise is the stunt work.
Yeah.
I mean, it is over the top. It's not
insane.
It's not like, listen, I'm going to give all credit to guys like Tom Cruise and other stunt professionals and stuff. And we can look at the end chase in the film Bullet with Steve McQueen and all that stuff. But at the same time, like, talking about characters and costume but the stunt work in this film,
it's incredible,
is absurd.
It's incredible.
Is absurd. And so I actually just wanted to kind of like prime the pump for you, because you were telling me off air like a story of some of the stunt work that was going into this film.
It was wild, and just the stuntmen were getting injured. And for those of you that are familiar with Road Warrior, there's the one stunt where the guy is on a motorcycle and he hits a car that is wrecked, and he kind of goes head over feet over, pinwheeling through the air. He had broken his leg months prior and had a metal rod in his leg. He would have completely shattered it, but what happened was he just bent the metal rod, and he really got hurt. And there's behind the scenes footage where you can watch that stunt in real time, because they slowed down the footage when he goes head over feet and over again. And man, the speed that he was going when he hit that thing, because he was just supposed to fly over it almost like a Superman,
right?
But he hit his legs and just crushed his one leg. If you look at the leg, it's bent. like
in a direction that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and he's just flipping, and it's in real time. It's just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But they were doing so many things with like that end action sequence, the chase, which is, Fury Road's amazing. But for this film to be in 82, it's this car chase at the end is so kinetic. It's I think it just raised the bar. Everyone's trying to emulate it.
Right.
But the things that Miller did was he had these stunt people that were willing to do insane stuff.
Yes.
And so they're filming like, I don't know if it's all in the outback, but they're filming some of it. I know they shot near Sydney. So they're filming in this kind of open area and they're just going for it.
Yeah.
And they're doing all sorts of things where they have drivers in cages in the cars to where when they wreck, they're trying to protect them, but they're really wrecking.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's moments where they thought they had lost a stunt guy,
right,
but it was a dummy that had fallen off. I mean, it was just wild, the filmmaking. And one of the things I loved about it when I was watching it last night was they are constantly putting the cameras in the car next to the car, or they have a car going the speeds as all the other vehicles.
Right.
And there's just there's this feeling of speed. Whereas like a movie like Bullet with Steve McQueen, a lot of that chase, they have a camera that's stationary on the side of the road filming them go by. They're flying, but the camera's just watching
it's like
them
that
go.
third person perspective.
Whereas with the Road Warrior, the camera's with them.
Yeah.
And I think that adds something to it. And it's truly stunning. There's so many moments where, like the moment that Sam got the biggest, like he had the biggest reaction was things are bad. The door's been ripped off the rig. Max is like, he's of course banged up from his wreck earlier in the film. And the guy, it looks like he's done. And a guy comes driving up beside Max, about to take his tires out, and Max just kind of stands up and leans out of the car with his sawed-off shotgun and blows the guy away.
Yeah.
And Sam just was like, yeah! Like, of course, the feral kid at the same time is like, he's like laughing. And I'm just like, oh, that's when when the Road Warrior, is at its best, is these like heroic moments of like everything stacked against you, but Max is going down with a fight. And it's just truly just insane, all the action stuff, even the wreck at the end where Humongous turns on his nitrous and he's just like head-on collision. And, Miller said in a commentary, like that was the stunt they were the most worried about was the wreck of the rig. And he said something interesting. He said, we planned it. They filmed the Road Warrior in sequence. So this is one of the last things they shot.
Yeah.
They had planned it all out, and Miller said, it's these things, these big stunts that are normally turn out okay. It's just the little stuff where people really get hurt.
Right.
And he's like, because your guard isn't as high.
That makes sense.
And he said a lot of the guys got injured on stupid little stunts they were doing, but it was the big stuff they were fine.
Yeah.
And the guy rolled the truck and was just fine, like crawled out of it. I'm just like, wow. The other thing about it, and for those of you listening, go back, watch The Road Warrior, and pay attention to this because I didn't notice it until this viewing. When they do the chase at the end, it's a 13-minute sequence. Incredible. The day changes constantly. It's sunset, it's sunrise, it's midday, it's twilight, it's jumping all over. And they were really worried about it. The budget, they made The Road Warrior $4.5 million.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
I mean, Star Wars was 15 in 77. So, I mean, they're like, yes, it had a budget better than Mad Max, but it's just crazy that was their budget and it makes hundreds of millions of dollars. And in fact, The Road Warrior was the most profitable film until Blair Witch.
Wow.
And Blair Witch is an independent, anyways, like the day is just changing constantly. And they're like, well, do we do something? Can we do anything about it? We have such a low budget. We can't afford to shoot extra days to make sure we have the light the right way.
Right.
And Miller just finally was like, they're going to be so focused on the vehicles and what's happening. No one's going to probably notice.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice. I'm 48 years old, and this was the first time I'm like, oh, it's now getting close to nighttime. Oh, it's the morning. Like
so great.
It's wild. Just the days constantly changing. But
you know what I love about that, among other things, though, is by 1982 standards, like nobody really cares.
Right.
By 2022 standards, like plot hole.
Yeah.
Plot hole.
Yeah. Let's make a 5-minute YouTube video about it. The big mistake in the Road Warrior. We'll get
tens and tens of hits.
Hey, their fingers crossed. Maybe it'll go viral, man. I'll be a YouTuber. So yeah, it's gosh, Road Warrior special. We there's so much more to talk about, but let's take a break. We got to do There Can Be Only One.
There can be only one.
Obviously, we could go on and on. We're at the hour mark of the show, but we got to talk about what's the best thing about the Road Warrior. Yeah. It could be a character, moment, scene, a line, theme, a song in it. What's the best thing for you about the Road Warrior, Devin?
And you touched on it earlier, Jeremy. Yeah. But it's the lone dude with his dog.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. I'm out.
Yeah, when my eldest Kyler and Sam were watching, and when the dog gets taken out, they were not happy. In fact, Kyler was done at that point. Got up and left. Sam stuck it out, but Kyler basically was like, "F this. I'm out. I'm out." I similar. I think the characters. I think there's not a single character that is not interesting to me in some way. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how George Miller does this, because Fury Road is the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Furiosa, you have Max, you have all the, you have Joe, the villain. Everyone is so interesting. You have the dude playing the flamethrower guitar in Fury Road, and you're like, who the F is this guy?
Yeah.
It's just... truly amazing. It's a designed thing where they design these characters in a way that captivate you. But when they have interactions, there's a great moment in the Road Warrior where Max brings back the rig, and it's been shot by Humongous. He shoots the engine because he has that powerful handgun, and they're kind of assessing the damage. And there's this like phone. I can't remember the name of the game, but it was like phone booth or whatever, where you tell someone something.
Right.
And so they're relaying these messages to each other, and it's like, it's just funny in the Australian comedy kind of way. And they're just relaying these messages like, well, you got 12 hours, not 24. He's like, I can do that. And he's like, he can do that. They're like screaming across, and these are bit characters, but like that little, it's a 25-second little sequence.
Right.
I cared about all of them.
Right.
And it just felt natural and weird and funny. And it's just, these characters are just delightful. And I mean, there's so many people and moments you can talk about when it comes to the Road Warrior.
Are there parts of the Road Warrior that didn't satisfy you? Things that you would want, like a different, whether it's outcome or different perspective or added to that maybe didn't make the film?
Devin, honestly, I think for me, no, with one exception, and you brought it up at the start of the episode, it's the opening. I wonder if you just throw them in the deep end.
Yeah.
Throw the audience in the deep end and just start with the chase.
Yeah.
Like somehow there's an apocalypse that's happened. This is after it.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's one of those few movies that I'm like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's truly perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like, I finished the movie and there's nothing I want.
Yeah.
Like it's giving me everything I need.
Right.
The ending is classic, and the mystery's still sort of intact. And even the reveal at the end where the feral kid is the narrator. Yeah. He says, I went on to be like the chief of the great northern tribe. And you're like, oh wow, there's this other story with this kid, you know? Right. And even Fury Road does that, because now they're doing a prequel with just Furiosa. Yeah. And I don't remember the actress's name, but she's in that chess show on Netflix. It was so popular. She was in The Northman. Anyway, she's playing a young Furiosa. Oh. So, anyways, so Anna Taylor-Joy, is that her name? Yeah. Anya Taylor-Joy is playing Furiosa. Okay. So, again, he's put together this amazing cast. Yeah. I think they're going to be filming the next Road War or the next Mad Max, even though Max isn't even in it. I think they're filming it in the coming like year.
Nice.
So I think they're getting ready to do this thing. So I'm really pumped about that. And yeah, it's going to be great. I think Miller's still at the top of his game.
Yeah.
And
which is crazy to think about, right? I mean,
it's nuts.
That's some longevity right there.
It's nuts. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us on Twitter, even though I don't do anything on Twitter. It's Live in the Past. I retweet some stuff. So LIVIN the past. Hey, Patreon's out there for you. I know some of you are there. I know you're ready. I know you're ready to take a step into a larger world and support our midlife crisis.
Please.
So, it's patreon.com/living-in-the-past, LIVININ the past. We're working on Video Revelations. That's going to be a project we're working on. We're basically taking these horrible movies that Devin and I have not seen. We're watching them. We're editing them down to like 10-minute videos of just kind of our reaction to these terrible movies. We have Samurai Cop coming. We have New York Ninja coming. We're even looking at Troll 2. We haven't seen any of these. So we're doing that. For our patrons, the whole like experience of watching the movie will be there for our patrons, and then we'll edit it down and put it on YouTube for the masses. So that's what we're working on, and we're really excited about that. Next episode is Be Kind Rewind. We take listener calls, talk a little bit more about, Mad Max and post-apocalyptic films, but that'll be next week. As always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.